Thanks for tuning in. Slinging Dirt Media, YouTube, Facebook page. We're going to start off with a short version for YouTube today, or Facebook. We're sitting here in the National Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame at Florence Speedway. I'm lucky enough and honored enough to get to sit with legendary chassis builder Larry Shaw. Larry, thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
Man, I tell you what, I don't get these opportunities very often, but man, I know you've got tons of stories, and I don't even know where to start. Just, I mean, how did you get into racing?
All right, back in 1973, in the fall of 1973, Julian Martin and his son Mark went to Talladega to watch the race, and Julian gets back home and calls me like on a Monday. He said, "Hey, Shaw, this kid of mine, we went to Talladega and he wants me to build him a race car. Would you help us build it?" And I said, "I don't know anything about building race cars." He said, "We don't either. Maybe we can all learn together." I said, "Well, I'd think about that." At the time, I had an auto repair and body shop business.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. So what was you doing before that?
Well, I got out of the military and I went to work with my father-in-law for a little bit, and then went to some General Motors school and did some things like that. And then in 1969, I believe, I went in to Batesville, Arkansas, and put in an auto repair and body shop business and built up a real good business. And that's what I was doing at the time when Julian had called me, because I was doing, Julian had a trucking company, and I'd put windshields and do his starter and alternator business, and he had some high performance cars and trucks, and I worked on them all the time. So that's kind of why he called me. And then they went and bought an old 55 Chevrolet out of a salvage yard. And when I leave my shop, I had to go by Julian's trucking place. And he told Mark, he said, "Hey, when Shaw come by here tomorrow, be at that door and see if he looks over this way." So I drove by there and I looked. And he went and told me, yeah, he looked. He was thinking about stopping. So the next day, went by her again. And then the third day, I pulled in and stopped. And that's when it all started. We started building that 55 Chevrolet, and we worked, that was in October. We worked all the way up to the 1st of March getting that first race car done. Like I said, we did not know anything. And back then, there was no high-performance warehouses and parts warehouses. If you needed something, you made it, you know. And then as we got into it, then we got that car done, and we went out to Independent County Speedway, which is Batesville Speedway now.
Okay.
And I think the first night out there, Mark kind of got crowded off, run off the back straightaway. We hadn't even we just had a couple warm-up laps, and he ran off the track, and he went off that bank, and Julian looked at me and said, "Oh, we worked on that thing all winter. Now he's tore it up." But all at once, he popped back up on the track, and come on, I think he finished 4th, and after that, we just kept getting a little better and a little better.
So this is the same Mark Martin that everybody knows in NASCAR.
That's him.
So how old was Mark when he was doing this?
He was in 9th grade when we started.
9th grade. So he's a freshman in high school. It's like, hey, he's going to
14 years old. Yeah.
Huh. So my dad, that was my dad's favorite NASCAR driver. Forever was Mark Martin. He was a big Ford guy and loved Mark Martin.
Everybody loved Mark Martin.
Yeah, I heard he's a super nice guy. I haven't met him, but I've heard he's just a super nice guy. I've watched some of his podcasts as well.
Yeah. So first year racing, we run there at Independent County, and they had a little track called Heber Springs. We run there some. And then before the year's over, we started going to Little Rock at I-30 Speedway.
Okay.
And in fact, that's where we won the Arkansas State Championship in 1974. That was the first year we raced.
Nice.
And to this day, Mark cherished that as one of his biggest winning
Really?
the Arkansas State Championship.
Yeah.
And the other one was winning a big race at Bolivar, Missouri.
Right.
We went up there against Larry Phillips, Esri, all the big top names there.
Right.
And Mark didn't do very good in the heat, so he had to run a C. He won the C. He started at the back of the B, and he got to 2nd. And the promoter up there had a deal, if you run 2nd, and the guy that won the race, if he didn't want to start the back, you could buy his place to start. So Mark started at the back of that deal, and goes through there, and he wins a race because he said, "I'm just passing car going and coming." He didn't know he won the race, so he's getting ready to go in the pits. They said, "No, you go to the front straightaway." That's where they did the Victor Lane deal.
Really?
So and he said, when I pulled out there on the track, people was climbing the fence and just going crazy. He said, so I knew I won then. So that was his second deal that he cherished to this day.
Yeah.
And the third one was when he went to Rockford, Illinois, and won the national short track championship.
Yeah.
300 lap race.
Those are big,
all
those
the
are big deals.
all the NASCAR people and all the good short track people was there, you know.
Right.
And Dick Trickle set quick time, and Mark was second quick, and we won the race.
And this is the same car that you guys had built.
This
or you guys different cars.
This was the one. This would have been the 4th year of racing when we went up there.
Okay.
It was an Ed Howe chassis.
Okay.
It sure was.
Yeah. So I some of this is before my time, but you know I knew some of the names and stuff. So I knew Howe was building a bunch of cars, and then in Rayburn and stuff like that.
Right.
When did you guys actually start producing chassis?
I actually started. See, I went to Mark burnt me out after about 5 or 6 years. So I actually went to work for Baker Engineering in Michigan.
Okay.
Ray Baker wanted me to manage his racing engine. All he wanted to do was build motors. He asked me if I'd manage his whole deal for him.
Right.
So he sent my wife Cheryl and myself 2 tickets there and flew us up there, and we get up there and we decide to work there. But the first year we was there, they got 88 inches of snow, and that was more snow we'd ever seen in our life. And
Right.
I told Ray that I was going back south. I wouldn't be up here next winter. And he said, I'm going to buy you a new Blazer. I said, that won't help. He said, what would it take? I said, no, I'm going back south.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went back south and started Larry Shaw Race Car Business October 10th, 1979.
1979.
Yes, sir.
Man, that's the era from 79 forward. I was born in 77, so it's like these Camaros, that's like the holy grail. I was like, to me, that's my memories of growing up was these things, and how some of the races that I've seen, it's like that's my earliest memories of late models. You know, those the Chevelles and stuff and Novas, some of this stuff's they're great, but this is where I grew up in, and it's like I just love those cars. So that's about when you started building cars.
Yeah, I actually become a Howe dealer. I would buy the front stub off of Ed Howe and build everything from there back and make it my car.
Yeah.
In 19, and what really put me into the dirt late model business, when I went back south, most of my business was asphalt car. I had come out of that world, you know. Joe Shear had my car, and I'd actually sold Butch Miller some stuff to put on his Port City car, and he sold me some asphalt stuff. And then Toby Butler from the West Coast built him 2 cars, and he won the Classic 300 at Phoenix 2 years in a row. That's mostly where all my business was.
Right.
I had built a couple. The car that really put me on the move was the car number 35. I built it for Don Jeter. He was an oil well man out of Oklahoma, Woodruff, Oklahoma. He's passed away now. But he called me one day and said, hey, I want to build a car for a gentleman named Buck Cadwell, and we're going to go win a bunch of NDRA shows. And I said, well, that's pretty tough. Yeah. But he said, I hear that you're a pretty good car builder. I said, well, I guess okay, because he's kind of keeping up with me in the asphalt world, but I had built a couple dirt cars, one for Ferris Collier and one for Van Gimbel, and that's really all I had built. Built a few little short track cars around here, but he said, I'll be over Monday, and I want to talk to you about building me a car. He lands out here in Batesville and told me, he said, what kind of motor we need to use? And I said, well, probably a 402 aluminum Baker. I said, that's one of the best ones out right now, in my opinion. He said, where are they at? And I said, Grand Rapids, Michigan. He said, you got time to run up there? I said, I need to be back here Thursday. He said, we'll be back today. I didn't know he'd doing there.
We didn't know we were flying up and back.
So anyway, he had a King Air, so we land in Grand Rapids, and we go to Baker's place, and we're back there in Ray's engine room.
Right.
And Don asked me, he said, what motor we need, Shaw? I said, that one right there, that 430. And he said, we'll take that. He said, oh, no, that goes to Georgia. I can't let you have that.
Yeah.
And he said, I can ship you one in about 3 weeks. Don said, no, we need it now. He said, when you going to race? He said, a week from Friday. Well, see, that's first I'd heard of that. You know, that number hadn't even come up till right then.
Yeah, like, what?
And because I'm building asphalt cars, real aerodynamic, real slick and everything, and I'm not prepared to start building dirt cars.
Right.
So anyway, he pays him for that motor, and
so we shift gears, and now we're building dirt cars.
Yeah, he paid him for that motor and paid him for another one, told me to ship it to him, and then we start back to the airport. He said, what else we need from up in here? I said, well, Ed Howe got a brand new stub he wanted me to try.
Yeah.
And he said, where's he at? And I said, Beaverton, Michigan. And he asked that pilot, he said, what's the closest airport to Beaverton? He said, Saginaw. So I called Herb Brin. I said, hey, Herb, you got any of them new stuff done? He said, yeah, I got 3 I was going to ship you tomorrow. I said, can you, we want to pick one up today. He said, where you at? And I said, Grand Rapids. He said, that's two hours from here. I said, can you take it over to Saginaw Airport? We'll be there in about 25 minutes.
So you picked this front stub up, put it in the airplane.
Put it in the plane, too. So anyway, we come back home. We started Tuesday morning on that. My little brother Dennis and Claude Reed, that's all I had working for me at the time. We start building that car. We work all week on it. And the next week, then we leave Thursday night, went to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I didn't even have scales to scale a dirt car with at the time.
Right.
So I used Meek and Cobb, a big Firestone dealer, scales Friday morning. And we scale the car and we go to Hutchinson, Kansas. And I tell everybody this day, the good Lord had everything lined up perfect for me. The track was a brand new red clay track at Hutchinson, Kansas, slick from top to bottom.
Right.
Wasn't no holes at all. And this car was really aerodynamic. And we went and set quick time, like over a second half quick time.
We found the new recipe.
Yeah. So we lined up and run the trophy dash. We won it. We won the heat race. And then Sunday, when we lined up to run the 60-lap feature, we lapped all the way up to second place car. And the second place car was, I believe, was a Van Gimbel in one of my, really the only car I had there.
Yeah.
So when I left the racetrack that day, I had sold 7 race cars, and one of them was the Billy Moyer.
Really?
So that's kind of how all that started. So I started home. Of course, we didn't have cell phones or bag phones back then.
Right.
Stopped at a truck stop and told Cheryl, I said, my wife, I said, we're out of the dirt business. We're going to be done. I mean, we're out of the asphalt business. We're dirt cars now. So that's
we're dirt.
That was
we're
number
dirt people now.
That was car 35.
Car number 35.
And when I sold the business 3 years ago, and I mostly sold it in kind of health, but we had built 5,463 race cars.
Wow, that's huge. That's astonishing. A number of cars to build. I mean,
kind of like that car movie, quite a few miles.
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, wow. I just can't even. As a hobby, you know, I've worked on a few cars and helped put a few cars together, and been involved with some race cars that I had and stuff over the years. It's like, you know, you can build a car or two. You know, some people don't even do that in a lifetime. You've built 5,000.
Yes, sir.
Over 5,000. That's amazing. And a bunch of winning cars too. Not just
you know,
things that go up and down the road. These are race cars that are finely tuned and win races.
You know, from 1981 till I got out of the race car, I don't know of any race in the United States that we had not won at least one time. I'm talking about the World 100, dirt track.
Yeah.
Fourth, I know all of them, you know.
Every big race you guys have won at some point.
Moyer, myself, we won. I don't know the numbers. It's way up over 400, I think. But
wow.
You know, Billy was so talented. You know, we when we won the dirt track world championship in '86, that was another milestone that really put us in business.
Right.
I'd like to say it was his 21st birthday. I would like to say we started 21st, but we didn't. We started somewhere 16th to 18th, somewhere in that place.
Yeah.
But we passed Willie Kraft around lap 72 and went ahead and won the dirt track world championship. And that was 1986, and it paid $40,000.
Now that would have been at Pennsboro, right?
Pennsboro, yeah.
Okay.
That paid $40,000. That year we sold 246 cars. That's the most I've ever sold.
In 1 year?
1 year, yes, sir.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Now have you had a bunch? Obviously you've had a bunch of different. Now, did you guys have like a house car that you maintained and just had somebody drive for you, or would that just
I could have been one of the first ones to start that house car program.
Yeah.
But Moyer, I went to Kansas. He had my car, and he didn't have a real good maintenance program. I come out of the Julian Martin school where he had all of them trucks running coast to coast, and he had a real strict maintenance program. When he come in, he went over and checked everything. And I kind of started the same way with my business, just make sure your maintenance was done.
Yeah.
And Billy wasn't really on top of his program because he didn't have no help. So I was at Kansas City Lakeside one night, and that's when it was a real high bank racetrack. And I think he'd set quick time or something other. But in the heat race, he completely went over the wall and landed out there in the parking lot and tore that car all to pieces. And he said, Shaw, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you load your stuff up and go back home and bring everything you got to my place? And I said, you can stay with me. You can live in my house with us. We got a basement. You can stay there with us, and I'll start keeping you in cars. So that's what I did. I put him on a house car program.
And that kind of started the house car program.
That started the house car program for me. First thing I know, he needed a backup car. And back then, at Eldora, you could take as many cars you wanted to. We took 4 cars one year, so we had a whole bunch of chance to qualify and get better number. And that just gets you confused.
Sure. I mean, I remember about, we talk about taking multiple cars. I remember guys taking out and qualifying which one they like better, and then Earl come over. All right, boys, which one's it going to be? Which one you going to be in? You know, obviously they take the one they felt the best in. You know, and go for it.
Yeah, I don't. Then first thing, I got another house car program. You know, I ended up getting Gundecker, and then Kevin Gundecker, and then Wendell Wallace, and Darrell. Just it goes on, you know. And first thing you know, you're pretty well overloaded there. And at the end, and then Terry Phillips. At the end of the year, you get their cars back, and you try to sell them, recover part of your stuff. You know. But, yeah. And but now, back then, you had I had Billy Moyer. That was in '82, '83, and '84. Right. I had Billy Moyer. Rayburn had Purvis.
Right.
Masterbuilt had Bloomquist. Yep. Callahan had Moran.
Yep.
And Barry Wright, I think maybe had. I don't know if he had. I don't know who he had, but
would that have been Freddie Smith, maybe?
I think Freddie come from Custom.
Okay.
But we've and when we go race somewhere on a weekend, really, who won the race, you didn't have to win the race, but if you run good, people's going to be calling, you know.
Sure.
So that's kind of how that went.
Winning races and running good sells cars.
Yeah.
Now, you sold, you said a few years ago. How long has it been?
July 19.
So how much is life different now, not going in and not building, not working on race cars compared to building cars every day?
Well, somebody asked me if I miss it, and I said, well, when you do something for 45 years, you just don't walk away and not think about it. No, I still keep up with it and everything. I've got a cattle farm. I got quite a few cattle, and I got my rental stuff, and I do a little real estate stuff, buying and selling and stuff like that. But I still stay in touch.
Stay active.
Yeah, I still stay with the race. My biggest deal, I've been running back and forth treating cancer, but you know,
Right.
Yeah, sure is.
So you were inducted in the Hall of Fame in what year?
2004, I believe.
2004. Have you been back since then?
Yes, sir.
You have?
Yeah,
okay.
twice.
I've heard the place has changed a little bit since the last time you were here.
It has. This is amazing in here.
Yeah, the guys are doing good stuff here and trying to, you know.
You know, it's kind of bittersweet. You see all this stuff, and then you see all the people that you knew.
Yeah.
The Bob Newtons, the Rayburns, and all the people that has done left us, you know. That really hurts. But it's a lot of history here.
There's a lot of history here, you know. And
yes,
anybody that knows me, or I mean, I don't go around bragging about it, but I mean, I do. I like old history stuff, and I think it's neat stuff. And obviously, I'm more than passionate about racing. So, learning some of the history that goes with the racing that I love, you know, it's just I geek out on it. I think it's pretty cool to get some of the stories, you know, like how you got started and racing with Mark Martin and things like that. I've been to Batesville, hottest place I've probably ever been on the planet, and I've been to Mexico, and I thought Batesville was hotter.
Yeah. Well, we had that fire in 1994. It pretty well really hurt our business. We lost some of our good drivers. We was at Daytona when the fire broke out at our shop, and we had a huge loss. And I was uninsured. I didn't have enough insured. I thought I did. They told me I didn't, and so they didn't pay me very much. So we had to rebuild after '94. We lost a whole lot of stuff, but we did take. When we sold the business, we took a whole lot. We just pretty well took we got a museum now at my house, in my shop behind my house there. So it's open for any time anybody wants to see it. We got a lot of stuff. We got 45 years of stuff in there.
I think I need to make a trip.
You sure do.
I need to make a trip. Maybe I'll get with Matt Watson or something. We'll head down and check it out.
You got to.
All the tracks that you've been to, do you have a favorite? Is there one that stands out? It's like, man, that was a nice place. I really liked it, or I always liked that event every year. You know, is there anything like that really stands out?
Well, I like Batesville because I built Batesville in 1988 and 89. It was a little small quarter-mile track, real small quarter-mile track, and when I decided to build a racetrack, it was the gentleman that had it had took and boxed in both ends, made a catfish pond out of each end.
Really?
So we couldn't do anything with it, so we had to clean them ponds out and haul all that silky sand out of the way, and then start to build a racetrack. So we started in 1988 early and worked all. We had our first race August of 1989.
Okay.
And when I was building that thing, I called around and got some information. I kind of built it like a small Eldora.
Yeah.
And
I get that feel from it.
And Bill Willard that owns Lebanon Speedway, he's passed away now too. I was telling him I was going to build a racetrack. Well, I don't recommend it, but if you do, let me give you a few hints. He said, what you need to do is the wind down your part of the country always blows from the southwest or from the south. put your bleachers on the west side of the racetrack, so when Grandma comes out there with them kids with her hair all up and just got it done Friday, and she's ready for church Sunday, and if she's got dust blowing all in her hair and everything, she's not coming back the next week. So he said, that's one thing I'd tell you, and he told me a few more things. So then when we got ready to open, I talked to Tom Heffers about, I've been to his place, it seemed like it run pretty good.
Yeah.
And he said, Shaw, don't get a whole lot of food. He said, my place, I got a real good hamburger, got a real good cheeseburger, got nachos and popcorn.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
And he said, because if you get a whole bunch of stuff, they get shopping in line, they don't move fast enough.
Yeah.
And he said, just if it's your first night to open, just have a whole bunch of popcorn. We had like 6 or 8 bags, 55-gallon bags of popcorn already popped up, you know.
Yeah.
And we run out of popcorn. And
wasn't enough.
Coke sale, I talked to him later. I said, well, we're running out of popcorn, but Coke sales. He said, what you got to do, if your Coke sale down, just put more salt in the popcorn.
More salt in the popcorn. That'll make you drink more.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I wouldn't have thought of stuff like that.
So anyway, when I built that place, I talked to some people that was doing some World of Outlaw shows and stuff, and they told me that they'd like for me to put all the wires to all the poles and everything underground, so it wouldn't be a problem when it's filming. So I did all that, and that was really a high dollar deal to do it that way, but we did it that way. And
but it's convenient. And
at that time, ESPN was thinking about coming in and doing some dirt shows, but
really?
ESPN had a bad run with NDRA at Chicago, at Santa Fe.
Right.
They could not. That's when people wouldn't get out. They'd still work on the car. They didn't blow the horn, and actually it irritated ESPN, and they went, it's Thursday Night Thunder or something.
Yeah.
They said they left us with 10 laps to go.
Really?
And they said because they never would do another late model dirt show till they get where they get them organized and get them on track, you know.
Huh.
Even my bunch, they would not get out there, you know. But when they blow the horn, they come on out now, you know.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, when we had, I couldn't get a World of Outlaw show for 2 or 3 years, but I finally got one. I had to take it on a Monday night.
Monday, okay.
Yeah. And you've been to Batesville, you know how fast the track is.
Yeah.
Butch Ivy, a local sprint car racer, runs with the World of Outlaw.
Yeah.
He went around, what they did, World of Outlaw sprint cars tells you how you got to have everything. You got to have the track real heavy and wet. So anyway, I don't remember how many cars they had, but they gave all of them 4 laps. When they pulled on the track, they never did lift. They went 4 laps all the way around.
Wow.
And Butch Ivy from Little Rock turned a 10.40.
Wow.
So that's, nobody's even touched that. No close.
Yeah, that's blistering on a racetrack at 10 seconds.
And then, of course, back to what you said, the racetrack. I like Batesville. I like Eldora.
Yeah.
They're just always like I-30 for a short track, but tonight's their last night. They've sold that.
Right.
So they've been in business 66 years.
66
years. Just a lot of tradition there, you
know. I remember, it seems like, and I don't know if maybe it was Bloomquist or how, but it seems like, you know, when I was younger, Eldora was that up against the fence, and it was hammer. You were scraping the fence every lap, and that was the line. Until somebody come in and it's like, well, everybody's doing that, and you can't drive through them. You got to drive around them. So somebody come in and started racing on the bottom, and now it seems like it's a little bit more of all over the track. But you know, when they come in and just start, wow, how's this kid doing this on the bottom of the racetrack? That's way different than what I'm used to seeing here.
Yeah, back when we was up against the wall, we always had to be for a rear spoiler up because we always knocked it off, you know. And when you knock your spoiler off when you knock that right rear spoiler off at Eldora, you're dead.
Yes.
You know, you're not going to keep up.
Right.
But yeah.
Is there any little tricks or anything that you guys kind of maybe got by with that was, I don't want to say frowned upon, or it wasn't quite in the rules, but we were able to pull this off and get by with it? Was there any little tricks like that?
Yes, we raced at Wichita, Kansas. C. Ray Hall was the promoter out there, and Moyer had won the race. And they get us over in tech, and they tell us we had our motor back too far. The setback on the motor, it was 2 inches.
Okay.
From the
number 1 spark plug to the ball joint.
Yeah, and the way we had ours back 4.5 inches, and C-Ray told us they ready to chunk us. I said, what is it? Your motor's back too far. I said, no, it's not. He said, it is. It says 2 inches from the center of the ball joint.
Okay.
I said, no, it don't say center. He said, it sure does. I said, no, it don't. So he sent somebody up in tower and got a rule book come back.
Right.
It said 2 inches from the ball joint. I had found a ball joint that had a plate that I got 2 1/4 more inches out of. So it was it's back 4 1/4 inches.
Right.
But it was from the ball joint.
From the ball joint.
So that was one of the things.
Yeah.
I think not myself, but I think everybody always mess around with the wheelbase a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And I said you could test yourself when you went to some different racetrack. Now you could go to some of these little racetracks and get by with some stuff, you know. But
right.
when you pull in at Eldora or some of these tracks that they really attacked back then, you had to be right, you know.
Yeah.
At Eldora, the year Charlie Schwartz showed up with that wedge car.
Yeah.
I'm thinking rules are open, do whatever you want to. So I had Winters to build me a rear end like goes in a sprint car, and I hooked the drive shaft to the back of the crankshaft to the rear end, and we had to push start it.
Right.
And we was in the, I think was in the first heat race, and Moyer won it, and Jack Boggs was coming off. When Moyer took the checker flag, Boggs was going into 3. We get to the pits. I don't know who told him that they thought we was direct drive or whatever, but time we got over there, here come all the tech people, and Earl come with them. That kept turning sideways and everything.
Yeah.
And they told him, said, Earl, they ain't got a transmission. And he looked around, he said, okay. He shut the race down.
Really?
And had us load our stuff up, and then escorted us out and told us to come back when we was legal. We was bad.
Until somebody had said something.
Yeah.
Hey.
I kind of had an idea who said it, but we won't talk about that.
We'll leave that one off the
Yeah.
air. We'll talk about it off the air.
Yeah.
Or something. Wow, that's see, stories like that is just stuff that I think is that's what we need. You know,
Yeah.
it's like people need to share those, and especially to Earl to come up and say, "Hey, you're going to load up right now, and you're going to take this thing off my property."
Yeah, he didn't even straighten his scalp up. He just told us right then, get out of here.
Well,
And
he
did. He shut the second heat race down, and we got loaded up, and they helped us load. We got out of there quick. And he told us to come back when it's legal.
When it's legal.
So then we won quite a few after that, you know.
After you did it right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Gosh, I don't even know where to go from that one. Earl's a kind of a different character.
I never did have a problem with Earl
Yeah,
after that.
yeah. I mean, everybody loved Earl and how he was, but just his demeanor and the way he just told it like it was a little not like everybody else.
Yeah. When we started building the IMCA, you couldn't hardly find the stubs for them. You had to get them out of the salvage yard and get them. It was a lot of trouble. And I had talked to UMP about doing a fabricated stub, and I made one. Out of 2x4 tubing, made it.
Sure.
And took all the mounting points off of the Chevelle, had everything, idle arm, everything just like a stock stub would be.
Right.
And it weighed actually 4 pounds more. And I'm thinking this is going to be a big selling point, and I can get this thing in because we started running. And UMP come down and said, that looks good. That'd be okay. Well, then I called Lottie up at IMCA, visit with him on it, you know, and he really got irritated at me.
Really?
He told me, he said, Shaw, it was you that put all these cars back in the early 80s on jack stand because you come up with that fabricated front stub. Well, I didn't come up with that front stub.
Right.
That was Ed Howe's front stub.
Right.
I come up with the strut rod front stub later. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So anyway, he said, as long as I'm with IMCA, long as I'm alive and with IMCA, you'll never have a fabricated stub with IMCA.
Really?
I said, okay, Lottie, I'll be watching obituaries.
He was dead set on it.
So,
Heels dug in. That ain't happening.
So I didn't go to the IMCA National for a couple of years, and I went up there and I told Kevin right there, I said, I don't know what Lottie's going to do when I see him. Man, I walked in there, he gave me a bear hug like he missed me all these years, so we're all good again now. Yeah, we're all good again now.
Huh.
But the fabricated stub, that's what Ed, after the Camaro stub, he started building a fabricated Camaro stub.
Right.
I was at I-30 one night at Little Rock, Arkansas, and there's a kid driving a number 66 Hearst rental hobby car.
Yep.
And, man, he was so fast through the turns, and I go around, I'm looking at all over. At that time, I had kind of got a pretty good name around, you know, and I went around, I said, hey, what kind of, I told him, oh, he said, Mr. Shaw, how you doing? I said, fine. I said, can I look your car? Yeah. I said, what kind of frame is this? He said, it's a 65 Ford Torino.
Really?
But through the turn, he was so much faster than everybody else. So I come back home, I call Ed Howe Monday morning. I say, hey, Ed, I said, we need to build some of these strut rod front end. I said, I think that's a thing of the future.
Sure.
he said, I can't do that show. I got all my money tied up and all these jigs and all this stuff. I could never do that.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, well, I think I'm going to do it. He said, I wouldn't recommend it. Well, I went ahead and built one, and of course the rest of it's history. You know, pretty well every car now is a strut rod front end car. You know.
Yeah.
But and then some of the chassis builders got them, and that's what they got. And then Ed Howe, he was the only one that I thought did me fair. He called me one day. He said, Shaw, send me 2 or 3 of those stubs up here. I'm going to start using them.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to cut them up and make some changes. But the only thing Ed did, he just took the upper A-frame, laid it flat, still standing up. That's really all he did. But he was fair with me, you know.
It does seem like, I know over the years there's been a few, I mean, quite a few different ones, but some have really stood the test of time. And it's like, it seems like it's been a common thing that somebody will get another car from somewhere or something, it did something they liked, and they'll pull it in their shop and try to make it better, try to reinvent the wheel. And it's like, I guess they're always constantly going to be trying to find speed and make something better.
It's just like the bird cages. Maury and myself, we kind of looked at that, some drag car, and seen them bird cages, and kind of thought we'd be pretty good. Well, we'd get running pretty good in Arkansas, Missouri, and Louisiana and around. You know, we'd win some races with them. Yeah. But then we'd load it up and come east and run into Jeff Purvis, and he would have those leaf springs and coilover on, and most time it was on the bank track. Yeah. And Jeff just wear us out.
Yeah.
We carried those leaf springs and coilovers with us. We'd take our stuff off between a heat race and feature and put the other stuff back on. So when we got ready to go run the Dirt Track World Championship in 1986, I told Maury, I said, hey, look here. Here's what I'm going to do. Yep. I'm going to get you a Gertie motor, and we're going to put them bird cages on here. And when we go to Pennsboro for the Dirt Track World Championship, we're not even taking those leaves and coilovers with us. We're going to make this work, and we're going to go with it.
Right.
And sure enough, we went up there, and of course we won it. And, you know, every car now has got, you know, the leaf coilover, all the swing arm, all that stuff gone. Everything's 4-bar, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So. I knew Rayburn. He was heels dug in on. You don't need 4-bar. You don't
swing arm.
Swing arm. This is the way it is. Just eat you another hot dog. It'll be all right.
And Jeff, them leaf coilover cars, when you get on them bank track, that's when they was really fast, because you was up there and you'd get launched off the turn. You know, on a bull ring, you're a little better shape with them, but boy, you get on them high bank track like Tomic and Eldora, you hadn't got a prayer.
Yeah. So I grew up here around Florence Speedway and Florence area, and I always camped for the north-south right over here, just outside of Turn 1 where all the T-shirt road is, and, you know, vending area stuff there. And for a long time I camped right there in the corner. You know, it's convenient that since I work here, you know, part of my job for that weekend is I park all the campers and make sure the parking people are doing what they need to do, and just a whole lot of parking and stuff. So Billy comes in, he had his big bus. The bus had the big yellow flame on the side of it. Yeah. And he pulled in, and the place was, man, pretty filled up, and there's not a whole lot of places you could park that bus. And Josh is like, do you have a spot? And I was like, hey, I can put him right here in my campsite. I mean, I got enough room. It'll fit right there. It's kind of easy in and easy out for him. He said, you don't care? I'm like, I don't care if he don't care. So he pulled in there and parked, and, you know, I knew he was here to work. It was his job. He's got a race car, and that's his job. I'm not over there bugging him. You know, I know what a great driver he is. I don't need to go over and tell him, hey, I think, man, you're one of the greatest. Anyway, so at nighttime we'd be out, and we'd have our little fire out, and a couple of us would be out there having us a couple beverages and enjoying, you know, talking about, man, the race was good. And Billy come out with his little cup. How's it going, fellas? You know, and just a nice regular guy, just sit there and talk with us. And man, it was great to get to hear him tell us. You know, and we didn't even really get into all the depth of his career. It was just like hanging out and being one of the guys, you know. And I think he liked that. You know, he wasn't bugged by it or anything. You know? He was like, hey, just a regular guy doing his thing. You know. Man, so you guys. Obviously, you said you've won just about every big event. Tons of tracks all over the country. Is there any one particular thing about it that you miss the most?
Winning.
Winning.
You know, when I first started racing, you know, I'd go to the racetrack and say Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Right.
You know, if I didn't win, they had to really be hustling to beat me out the gate, because I was the first one out. I finally got over that, you know, but I was at Muskogee one Sunday, hot afternoon. At that time, I think I was really loaded up with Arkansas, Missouri, and Louisiana, and Texas with a lot of cars. Right. And I think I had in that feature race that day, I think I had 14 cars in the feature race. And I decided to go to the grandstands one of them hot afternoons, July or August, and I'm sitting up there in the grandstand behind some people, and they had a wreck on the front straightaway. And back then they had a deal where they had the Larry Shaw logo on the nose.
Yeah.
And when that thing ended, there's like 2 or 3 of those cars pointed towards the grandstand, that Larry Shaw shining.
Yeah.
And that lady in front of me, she didn't know who I was because I never did wear a Larry Shaw shirt. You know, I tried to kind of low key
blend in.
She turned and told her sidekick, said, well, I bet that Larry Shaw was grinning from ear to ear. So I made myself an eased out of there, you know. But yeah, it was winning, you know. It's kind of like,
that's
you know,
the purpose. That's
nobody ever knows who runs second, you know. And racing's not very fair, you know. They can just be one winner, you know.
Right.
But yeah, that's it.
And you know, we've talked about it a lot of different episodes with, you know, we do a lot of local drivers and guys that are just work every day, you know, and then now they've got a race car. Well, that's a full-time job, and it's like how much people don't realize having a race car, no matter what level it is, it's almost a full-time job maintaining and keeping that thing going.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially these guys that do it as a hobby and they do it twice a week. It's like, man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
you asked me, I think yours sometime, who I thought was probably the best race car driver.
Yeah.
I believe it would be Larry Phillips, hands down. You know, I know when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame up here, Chris Carmichael was here, and he sat next to me, and he asked me who I thought was the best race car driver of all time. And I told him, my opinion, hands down, would be Larry Phillips. Because I said, he started out on dirt, and he went to asphalt, he went back to dirt, he went and won all those NASCAR races, and just – he was so talented. And I said, I run against him when Moyer ran my car. That's where the first time we bumped in, we had to run against Moyer.
Right.
And went through that area, and then my son Kirk started racing asphalt, and he run against him.
Yeah.
And then just seemed like he's always run. And anyway, Chris told me, he said, ever since Larry Phillips has come on the scene, on the cover of National Speed Sports magazine to this day, he's been on there more than any race car driver.
Really?
All classes.
Huh.
So Larry was unreal.
Yeah. Huh. So this probably, I don't know, before we wrap up, we're probably getting close on time and stuff. One of the things I definitely wanted to ask you and find out, in your opinion, you know, you've been around the sport a long time, different eras of different cars. Do you have a favorite era of, which kind of car was your favorite?
I liked it. I liked the 80s and mid 80s to 90s. I did not like the sideboards because you cut your head all the time walking around behind on the deal. But I did like
the big wedge cars.
I like the 8-inch rear spoiler and stock bodies. That's what I like, you know.
The Camaros and stuff like that, man, when they started getting the big fenders on them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought those were just neat, and they still look like outlaw racing, you know.
Now, the race car now looks good, too, you know.
Yes.
They look real good.
They don't look bad.
No, they're good.
Yeah.
I don't guess they'll ever get that front end like it should be, but it sure gets around the racetrack. And TV coverage and all the videos and everything, it's so good nowadays.
Yeah, it's doing a lot of good for the sport. And, you know, there's I think a lot of people would, I don't know, argue, but there's probably definitely cases. How much is the TV helping or hurting the sport? You know, is there less people not going to the tracks now because they can stay home and watch it? You know, I think there may be a little bit of debate on that.
Well, I think with the COVID and everything's happening,
it's changed.
It's changed everything up, and
not just racing. It's changed a lot of stuff.
Wherever you go to eat, just like up here, 3 or 4 places we went to, they didn't have nobody to wait on us, and just everybody's shorthanded.
Sure. And, you know, it's like your major sporting events, the Cincinnati Reds or whatever. You know, they're not surviving on ticket sales. They're surviving on advertising and TV and stuff. So it's
selling the T-shirts and hoodies.
Yeah.
Sure are.
Well, Larry, is anything else you need to mention before we wrap things up?
No, I just want everybody to keep racing, just racing towards the checkered flag. And,
buddy, me too.
Man, I tell you what, I want to thank I don't know where to start, but all the race car drivers, the owners, the track promoters, the fans, and my family. Everybody just supported me so much, you know.
Yeah.
Probably one thing that I never have forgot when I was in high school, our history teacher sat down one day, and she was the one that had them glasses on the end of the nose, and she wanted us to ask her anything we wanted to. She'd answer it.
Yeah.
And I said, anything? Oh, yeah. So my question was her why she was a school teacher.
Right.
And she said because she really enjoyed being a school teacher.
Right.
She didn't think anybody should go through life doing
Right.
anything that they didn't really enjoy doing.
Sure.
Now, that worked out for me.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to, but that did work out for me. So, yeah,
Right.
I've had a good life. My wife has supported me 100%. Kevin and Kirk, both of them been right behind me. So,
Yeah.
and we done a lot of traveling, a lot of running, and
You've got to make a living, provide for your family, doing something that you love to do,
that's true.
and been successful. Not just provide for your family and just live, be successful at it.
Yeah, it's been good. I don't know.
One of the best. You know, that's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, Larry, like I said, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day. I know it's a busy weekend and stuff, and squeeze us in and get to sit down and just tell some of the stories. I hope the people watching really enjoy it and stuff, and hope we have a audience that love it, and hope everybody else does as much as I did.
Well, if they're ever in Batesville, just come by the museum. It's always open. If it's not open, you can find my phone number real easy. You can call Kevin, shop me, give it to you or whatever.
Gotcha.
But I'm not hard to find. But I'm most of the time there, and I would love for them to come through. There's 45 years from the Mark Martin Day all the way up to now.
Right.
So
What's the best way for people to get the info on that? Shaw Race Cars, or you guys have a website or anything?
You can just
for
go
it?
to my website, Larry Shaw Racing
Larry
at
Shaw
gmail.com.
Okay.
Yep, sure can. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Larry. So we're
Thanks.
going to sign off from there. We're going to throw checker flag on this episode of Slinging Dirt Media with legendary race car builder Larry Shaw. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the track.